Have a full screen for us of what we're learning about how stubborn this variant is, even the vaccine.
Yeah, so we could put up those numbers, and let me just emphasize the point that you just made about the masks, though, as well, Chris. I mean, you're right. We talked about the vaccine. We've always put all our eggs in the vaccine basket. That's our culture. Masks would make a huge difference, and I would say, especially high filtration or N95 masks, if we wore those regularly whenever we are out in public, we probably have a much quicker sort of impact on this pandemic. But that aside, Chris, to your point, if you take a look, this sort of tells the story. The vaccines still are effective against these variants, but not as effective as they are against the more dominant coronavirus that's circulating right now. Novavax, we see that data starting to come out. 60% effective against the South African variant. That's 2B data, so we're going to see bigger data set. The Johnson & Johnson one's the one that we're really paying attention to. Across the board in the United States, 72% effective against moderate disease, but 57% against South African variant disease. The good news there is that if you look against severe disease overall, whether it's the variant from South Africa, the UK, Brazil, or what is circulating predominantly here in the United States, it was 85% protective against people getting really sick, going to the hospitalization and dying. That's why I was saying earlier that what is the real metric that we're looking at here ultimately? How many people are becoming infected, or how many people are actually getting sick and requiring hospitalization? I think we could still potentially see a significant impact on hospitalization and severe disease if we can get people vaccinated fast enough. And that's still been a little bit of the issue.
Last point. Fauci spoke about people in South Africa experiencing high rates of reinfection, meaning even someone like me, and I gotta tell you, I've heard this from people in France too. It just out of nowhere, I had a number of guys who I met during all the terror stuff in France saying that they got COVID twice. And I had heard that that was like, an aberration. Is that changing, that even people like me who've had it and still have antibodies, you can get sick from the variant?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say, Chris, that does seem to be increasingly likely, still maybe not common, but increasingly likely, and here's why. What they've done is they've done these studies where they look at convalescent plasma. So that would be like your plasma, right? You've had COVID, you've got antibodies, they take your plasma, and they're testing that now in the lab against this South African variant. And what they're finding is that those antibodies aren't as effective against the variant from South Africa as they are against the circulating coronavirus now. So they are seeing reinfections in places around the world. They saw it in Brazil. They're seeing some of that in South Africa and in Europe, as you mentioned. So that's the concern. And so, Chris, it also makes the case that someone like you should get vaccinated when you can. Because a lot of people say, look, I had it, I'm good to go, I don't need to get vaccinated. Not the case. You still need to get vaccinated, and this is precisely why.
Yeah, this is scary news. And I know it's going all over the place in the long haul community. I mean, it's the last group of people, and I'm one of the lucky ones. But the last thing they need is to know that they can go into that hole again. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, as we figure out what the administration will do to adjust to these realities, we've got to talk about it, see what makes sense, what doesn't.